Hello and welcome. Today I wanted to shoot a review of the Shiva Saber from Pach Store. Now, a couple things to discuss before I start looking at this saber more in depth. The Shiva Saber is not what a lot of people are used to when they're in the custom saber market or even when they're buying the Hasbro things. You guys are used to special effects on your sabers. You're used to NeoPixel, you're used to sound and all kinds of bells and whistles. And what you have with the Shiva Saber is profoundly not that. The Shiva Saber is what I like to call a beater saber, which is a saber that is designed for use. Meaning you're supposed to take this thing out and duel with it and duel hard. You're supposed to beat up people in full armor. You're supposed to practice tricks that might involve you dropping this thing. If this thing goes flying across the yard, that's what it's designed for. If it drops on concrete, that's what it's designed for. So a couple of the qualities that you look for in a good beater saber. For one, you want the saber to be cheap. For two, you want the saber to handle well. And for three, you want the saber to be durable. So those are the three things that I'm going to be taking into account when I talk about this Pach Store Shiva. So let me give you a little bit of a close-up on this. You notice this is a rather no-frills design here. You're also noticing that there is no activation button, which in terms of use is really nice, because if you're getting used to things like contact moves or stunts of that variety, you don't want boxes or buttons or anything that's going to hang up. And this thing is perfectly cylindrical, which is actually something that works towards its favor in terms of use. The button is down here on the bottom, and it's a rubberized push button that you might be used to in flashlights. And that's basically what this thing is. This is a glorified high brightness flashlight that's designed to be used as a lightsaber. So let's take a look a little bit more. What you have here in the first row of screws here, this is the retention screws that hold in the LED. The second row of screws up here are the retention screws that hold in the blade. The blade is a 1-inch blade stock. Now, one thing about the Pach Store is not all blades are created equal. If you get 1-inch blade stock from Ultra Sabers or from Custom Saber Shop or from Vader's Vault, there's a slight variation in terms of how big the blade actually is. And you might have encountered this in past, trying to fit a blade in and it just doesn't quite fit, or the fit is super tight. This is on the smaller end. So this blade fits in it pretty well right here, but this is a blade of TCSS parts from Bendu Armory. It'll fit in, but you'd really have to wrench that sucker in, and good luck getting it back out again without a strap wrench. So this is on the smaller end for socket size. The good news is that whatever blade you want to use, if you take some sandpaper to the base of the blade, it'll fit in here just fine. All you have to do is remove just a little bit of material, or have a blade that's slightly on the smaller side, like one of the ones that comes from Pach Store, or that come with a lot of the sabers that come in from China and other places in Asia. So blade socket's on the smaller side, but the blade socket on this is fairly deep. The blade comes down to here, which is a good thing in a dueling saber because it means that more of the force from being hit right here is transitioning into the hilt, and there's less chance of you snapping a blade. All right, let me go ahead and show you a little bit about what's in here. So if I loosen those blade retention screws and remove the LED retention screws, I can show you some of the guts of this saber. Now, this saber has a removable pommel. The button is on that pommel. Inside is a fairly straightforward flashlight style switch. Inside that is a lithium-ion battery. This is one of the good ones. This is a, well, one of the good type of battery. This is a 18650. So this lasts for a very long time and delivers a rather consistent voltage. So these batteries are what a lot of the high-end lightsabers use. This is one from China. Most of them are, or mostly you guys are probably used to Trustfire versions of the same. I could pop a Trustfire in here, it'll work just fine. Okay, the battery is housed inside this thick piece of polycarbonate here that makes it exactly the diameter of the inside. So there's no wobble back and forth on this thing. Okay, past that, there's another polycarbonate tube in here. So this is sort of a battle chassis that's made of a polycarbonate tube inside of a polycarbonate tube with a battery inside of that. And that's all that's in here. The other one doesn't come out, so I have to take this part out through the top. Okay, this is the LED and the top. So what we have in here, we have LED, heatsink. This appears to be PVC right here, but there's really no electronics or anything, or wires or anything to take care of. So the battery, sleeve around the battery, and the button. And this is basically the internals of the Pach Store Shiva. All right, now, even with beater sabers that I've gotten from other companies like Ultra Sabers, they have a tendency to use LEDs that then run wires down to a battery pack, and that battery pack rattles and the wires come loose. This setup has no wires to come loose, has no battery pack to rattle. The battery is just stuck in the middle, and the whole thing creates a very solid saber once you get it all back together here. A very solid saber that has a really, actually, one of the qualms that people have about some of the sabers from Pach Store sometimes is that some of the cheaper sabers use dimmer lights or dimmer LEDs. The LED on this one is actually right up there with a lot of the other sabersmiths that I'm used to. It's a pretty nice LED. So very sturdy, very simplified design, very, very resistant to wear and tear. So in terms of a beater saber, it's got the durability factor as well. Let me talk about cost a little bit. The cost on this thing is the cheapest price point on the market that I've seen. They offer these for $35. Now there's a hefty shipping charge if you're getting stuff from China, and that's kind of unavoidable. But if you're putting it in as part of a larger order, you can sort of separate that out a little bit. But $35 is a really cheap price for something like this. The thing is that $35 is a little bit of a deceptive price point. The $35 is for the hilt itself without the battery. If you put the battery in or add the battery in, it takes it to $52. So they're charging $14 for the battery. Now that's not that big of a, I mean, that's about, if I were to go down to a battery shop here in town and pick up one of these batteries, it'd probably run me about 20 bucks. But if you've got a bunch of them lying around from other sabers, or if you're buying them in bulk because you're using them a lot, you can do a lot better than $14. So if you get so they've given you the option to get the lower price point, but you have to find the battery. For 52 bucks, you get it with the battery. It also comes with no blade. If you want it with a blade, I forget what they charge for a blade, but it's like, I think it's like 15 bucks or something like that, which isn't bad for a blade. But again, if you have a lightsaber collection, or if you're doing a lot of dueling, you have blades lying around, you probably have batteries lying around. So you can get it at that $35 price point. Even at the $52, that still puts it comparable with a lot of other beater sabers that are out there, and the design on this is substantially sturdier. So in terms of the things I was looking for in a beater saber, cheap, check. Durable, definitely check. The internals on this, more than any other saber I've reviewed, definitely say, use me to beat something. It's like they scream that at you, because that is what this thing is designed to do. Handling. The handling on this is actually pretty nice too, because it is so solid, nothing wobbles around. And also they have this pommel that has the switch in it is fairly weighty. And as I mentioned before, by putting the button in the bottom, not having any button anywhere to hang up on you, there's a little bit of a downside to that. You have to get used to it. You can't just have the thing on and power it on like you could with a hilt that has a switch up here. You have to kind of either flip it on here or figure out a way to make that look cool by hitting it like that. But you don't have sort of the drama of the activation. but you do have a switch that's not going to turn off accidentally on you, a setup that's not going to shake loose or short or have the battery disconnect or anything like that. So it is a very user-friendly saber and a very user-friendly design. It is no frills, and it is the most no-frills saber that I've seen, but that's what they were going for with this. It's called the Pach Store Shiva, so it's named after Shiva. So it's a saber that's meant for destruction, more or less. There is a shortcoming in the design. Whereas you guys might be used to saying, I'd like this in one of 3 finishes. I'd like the LED in some other color. They're very limited in terms of the color combinations. You can get black and red, or you can get silver and green, or you can get silver and blue, and that's it. If you want a purple saber, you're going to have to try to accomplish that with filters or something like that, because you're not going to be able to get this in purple. And if you want a black hilt, but you want something other than red, you're out of luck. So the design aspect of this is limited, but the manufacturer of it, for what it is, for what it's designed to do, is an excellent beater saber. So there we have it, the Shiva saber from Pach Store. Bright LED, very streamlined design, definitely a beater saber. If you're using a saber for high impact things, this is a very solid way to go, and I think it's replaced the stunt ultra saber in my mind as a go-to for a beater saber. If this review has been of interest to you and has been useful, then please join me back for more, and I'll see you next time.